Hey everybody, we're back. I'm Teresa.
I'm Gerald.
And we're
the Scots.
You want to sing your little song? Love and
No, you didn't do it. Right?
Hey, listen everybody, we're back and today we want to talk to you about
love and marriage. Love and marriage go together like a horse and carriage.
Anyway, so we want to talk about love
and marriage.
And marriage. Yeah, because we're married.
We're in love.
We are in love. It took a long time for us to get here.
Yes, very long.
But we're here.
It's been a long time.
It didn't take 16 years,
a long time coming.
But it took
a
change.
Change will come.
Change done come. I don't
yes,
know
it is.
About. You know what? Anyway, audience, this is what we want to do. We want to talk about 1 Corinthians chapter 13.
Yeah.
And 1 Corinthians chapter 13, as most people know, is commonly called the love chapter.
Amen.
So, today we want to talk about 1 Corinthians 13. And I'm going to read from the King James Bible. And Gerald's going to read from
the New American Standard.
Right.
But before we do that, I want to say that our discourse today will be coming mainly from questions that are written and are noted in the manual to my wife Teresa's book, An Attitude of Love, the
ways of a godly wife.
Of a godly wife. I can hardly see.
He can't see.
Well, I'm 60-something years old. What do you expect? Ways of a Godly Wife. This is the primary book that we'll be coming from in terms of the questions that we'll be answering on this particular broadcast. So we thank you for your support. You can find this very enlightening book at Barnes & Nobles. You can find it at Amazon.com. You can also find it through her PayPal account, which is
mrstjscott@gmail.com.
Let me tell you, as a seasoned pastor of over 20 years, I can say that this is a very useful tool in the lives of those who are married, those who are contemplating marriage, and those even who are contemplating ending their marriage. I would say this would be a wonderful vehicle, a wonderful tool to save marriages, to go into a marriage with renewed confidence that what you're doing is the will of God. I would advise anyone to get a copy of this wonderful book that's available to you now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Amen. So, having said that, An Attitude of Love, the Ways of a Godly Wife, we're going to talk to you about love, and we're going to ask you some questions from this book. And only you know the answers, so be truthful with yourself. Don't try to make up stuff because you think it's a good answer, but tell the truth. This is how my healing process was able to come forth, because I had to finally tell the truth about what was going on with me. See, a lot of times in marriage, what we like to do is we like to blame our spouse for stuff that's going on. And surely, sometimes, they do stuff. Okay? But we have to recognize our part in the marriage and deal with us. Because, truthfully speaking, you can't change your spouse. You can't change them. I can't change him. He can't change me. And that's just the truth of the matter, right?
I would agree.
Yeah, we can't. I mean, so many times we work so hard and spend so much time trying to change our spouse. And it doesn't work. It's just expended energy.
And I would like to add that many a time the change comes in the spouse when we begin ourselves to change.
And that's true.
I believe that a lot of times we are looking for the other person to change, and sometimes they become resistant because it looks like only one changing, you're expecting me to change, and I see the same person in you that you've been. It's easier to change someone when they can begin to see a change in you. And then he said, oh, well, you know, she's really making an effort. He's really making an effort, an earnest effort to really make things better. Not in the marriage per se at the start, but in themselves as individuals. Each of us come into marriages with our own baggage, with our own problems, with our own past. Everyone has a past. We all were raised in a certain way with certain ethical standards or lack of the same. And we have to adjust to each other. We are two individuals. Yes, we become one in marriage, but two people become one. And only when we decide to become that one do we become that one.
And I don't really think people understand the true meaning of becoming one.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bible teaches us, when we're going to get into that in another lesson,
mm-hmm.
the Bible teaches us that it's a mystery that to become one.
Mm-hmm.
That, it says that the husband shall leave his father and mother and cling to his wife, and they two shall become one flesh. So what it's really saying in essence is that I'm him and he's me. Whatever I do to him, I'm doing to myself.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever he does to me, he's doing to himself, because we're one. So if I'm talking about him behind his back in a negative manner, I'm actually talking about myself.
And vice versa.
And vice versa. And that's one thing that we really need to understand about our oneness. And I can say that my husband and I think we've taken this oneness thing a little bit too far. Because everything, every problem that he's had basically in his body, I'm having. Like with his bones and everything. And now I'm sitting here in a wheelchair too. Y'all can't see it. But yeah, it's a wheelchair I'm sitting in. And because my hip is out of whack, he only has one hip. And now I told him, I was like, babe, we really took this oneness thing really far, didn't we?
Yeah.
Like, but our vows say that we're going to love each other in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health, right? For rich or for poor. And we've been through all of those stages. So the sickness and the health, we really did. We really became one, didn't we?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we became one in that. But we're the right partner for each other.
Right.
Because some people couldn't deal with that. I saw something on social media and asked the question: if your spouse became disabled and became, to the point that they had to be in a wheelchair or something, would you stay with them? Would you push them? Would you be with them?
Mm-hmm.
And we've already been there. Y'all already know that when he fell down the steps and broke his hip, and I was trying to get out the marriage and all of that stuff because I was not in the right mind to be able to deal with that. But now I am. I'm here, and we're going to talk about that one day too, about being a caretaker. You really have to talk about these kind of things. These things really happen in marriage. I didn't go into this marriage expecting to be a caretaker. I knew that he had a condition when we got married, but never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that he would be in a wheelchair to the extent that he is now. But that's another video, and we're going to talk about that because these are things that really happen. I don't think he ever believed in his wildest dreams that he was going to have to deal with me being sick. Even though when we first met, he was always taking me to the hospital. There was always something wrong.
More of her than me than doing those
Actually,
things.
It was.
As far as like going to the hospital
Yeah.
and being treated. But because of once again, we said it before, because of my past, I was able to be there, and I can not only sympathize but empathize. I understand what pain is, in particular bone pain and hip pain, knee pain, and all this type of thing. I can relate to that because last year this month actually, I was going under surgery for a knee replacement. So I understand that. When I was a teenager, I had a hip replacement, of at least a fusion of the hip. So I understand the dilemma of this. So my coming into it was even more than she having to deal with it. Like she said before, yes, I was born with cerebral palsy. I had my hip fusion before I met her, other ailments before I met her, but still I was able to get around. Limited, yes, I was. I had a cane and we couldn't do certain moves and couldn't do certain things, but I was functional. I really could do, I worked and I did this and I did that. So, she didn't have to worry on that level. But when I became to the point where I fell down the stairs and I became incapacitated, really bedridden for months, virtually a year, in terms still using the wheelchair, that became a different kind of dimension that she found difficult because she couldn't relate to that.
I couldn't relate.
That was something that was really foreign to her, and so she had to adjust to that. But eventually, I'm going to tell you the truth. The thing that really blessed me and turned me around was when she began to understand what she just mentioned a moment ago. And that is, our lives are intertwined whether we want them to be or not. Whether you want your life to be intertwined with your spouse or not, it is. And when you downgrade them or try to belittle them or try to make them lesser in the public eye than you think they should be because you don't like the fact of this or that, so you try to lessen them, it reflects on you too.
Yep.
It impacts you. If he doesn't get let's for example, I was a pastor, and they don't give me a church because you're saying I'm this and that, so I don't get a church. So that means now I'm out of work. Who else do you think that's going to impact? Just me?
But I didn't do that.
You know, no. I'm going to the extreme.
Right.
You know, people do that. They sabotage. I know, because I was a pastor, like I said before, I've known women, and husbands too, but mainly we're talking about women here, that sabotage their husbands' jobs. We go on the job and talk about it. You think he's this and that. You think he's that and this. Let me tell you what he's really like. And they start saying, oh, really? So they dismiss him. Or they relieve him of his responsibility. Who else do you think that impacts? And there's a salary less now.
Right, because of you running your mouth about your husband.
There you go, or your wife, and whatever the case may be. And you know, this has never been that. We've always been supportive in the job situation. But I'm saying that we need to be supportive in everything. Yeah. Not just for jobs, but just their reputation. You don't want to sour the reputation of your spouse. And
I'm glad you said that too, because I have this thing that when my husband goes out, he can't go out just looking any kind of way. Okay, no, we're not rich and we don't have the name brands and all that stuff. But when my husband goes out, I always say when we go out, we're a representation of our spouse. When he goes out, he's a representation of me. When I go out, I'm a representation of him. We shouldn't go outside, you know, just looking any kind of way, because number one, you never know who you're going to run into. You know, and number two, as being clergy, we should always be presentable when we go out.
Right.
You know, so we are a reflection of each other, whether we realize it or not. And that needs to be taught in marriage. That needs to be taught in marriage counseling. Before you get married, that you are one, whether you want to be or not.
God's standards never waver, whether you agree with them or not. God's way will always be manifested, whether you want to accept it or not. He said you're one, whether you want to be or not.
Yep.
And that's how the world will look at you. That's why a lot of people don't even get married, because they said, I don't want that kind of connection where people look at me and then reflect on her and vice versa.
It's a serious responsibility.
It's a very serious responsibility.
Yeah.
And your destiny is forged by how people see the two of you and how they see you both together. Are you functioning as a unit? Are you functioning as one? No matter whether there's disagreement or not, you do that in your own home. You wrestle with that between you and her at home. And people don't need to be included in that, because they begin to have, but we grow. That's why I thank God for every day. And you should thank God for every day. Whatever mistakes you made even yesterday, let alone 13 years ago or 12 years ago or 3 years ago, He woke you up today, which means you can get it right if you want to. You don't ever have to stay where you are if you don't want to. You stay where you are because you choose to.
Can I tell you this story? I'll tell the people this story. When you said it's been almost a year ago since you had your knee operation. And probably been a year ago now, right?
It almost October the 20th. Yeah, that's been. Yeah, that's been yesterday.
Okay, so I can remember, you know, when he first went to the hospital, when he fell down and broke his hip. I was a completely different person than last year when he was in the hospital. My attitude was different. The pleasure of being there, we didn't have any arguments. We didn't have and when we talk about oneness, this is how deep it was. I spent the night at the hospital with him. I forgot how many days he was in there when he had his knee operation. And they don't give the spouse food when the spouse spends the night.
Because it's not for the really
right, because it's for the patient. Right. But every time they brought him a tray, he would say, "Come on, Theresa, let's share this." And you know, in the hospital, first of all, they don't give you enough food for one person most of the time. And he's sitting there saying, "Let me share my food with you." And I thought that was so loving and so sweet, because, you know, you can look at us and tell that we eat.
Not starving. But then on the flip side, when she would sell books. Her books, this same book, An Attitude of Love, that's available to you at Barnes and Nobles, at Amazon.com, and through her PayPal account. But she would sell those books because people would say, "What do you